what I would encourage you to do, audience, is to go and read chapter 4, right? Galatians 4. Unpack it for yourself. And I respect the fact you brought that up, because I remember reading that bit and being like, I'm not touching that.
Welcome to the Bible in 1 Year podcast, brought to you by two Brits and a Bible.
Today is day 342, covering Galatians 4, 5, and 6.
I'm pretty happy with that Geordie accent, to be fair. That's one of my better ones.
Yeah, that was really good. What I find funny is anyone who ends up watching the entire series through is just going to see the consistency of your accents and the consistency of me just like not even attempting an accent at any point. Every time, just deadpan, same exact voice. But yeah, dude, that was good.
Yeah, they usually end up with a bit of an Indian hybrid, so I was quite happy. I've been watching a lot of Taskmaster lately. I don't know if you ever watched Taskmaster. Greg Davies, Alex Horn. But they have a contestant on season 13, 14 who is Geordie, and so I've been like hearing his accent a lot. So I'm like, surely I can nail this. Like,
love that.
No way! It was one of yeah. Anyway, so sorry for anyone that the other side of that is anyone that's watched these all the way through is like, oh, there's another accent. Anyone that's just watched this one for the very first time has been like, what the heck is going on? Or like any other random ones, like, why is that little white boy giving me a Jamaican accent kind of thing?
Yeah, it happens.
A lot of cultural appropriation, I think it's called. Anyway, there's a minute of utter garbage. So Galatians 4, verse 4. But when the set time had fully come, God sent his son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. So this kind of just follows on from what we were saying yesterday, basically, is in order for Jesus to fulfill the law, he had to be born under the law. And so to be born under the law, he had to be born as a woman. And apparently that is one of the reasons that's actually not necessarily the reason it's in the Bible, but an importance of that verse is because it contradicts people that believe that, and I think it was it Seventh-day Adventist or something that believed that Jesus was born of human mother and human father to become like, godly father, godly mother to become like a godly human kind of thing. But actually it had to be a human, 100% human and 100% God. He couldn't be,
Yeah, makes sense. So that he could actually be the bridge, because if it was both godly, then it would just be God. If it was both human, it would just be human.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. It's also interesting. I thought you were going to say something totally different, which is, I wondered if being born to a woman like a natural birth bears you into the law that came in after Adam and Eve at the fruit or something, but who knows, way above my pay grade.
That's what's implied by that.
Gotcha.
Sinful, lawful, based salvation that actually had into it to pull people out of it.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That's good. That's really interesting straight off the bat. So then Galatians 4 verse 7, since you're no longer a slave but God's child, and since you are his child, God has made you also an heir. Just a small thing. That is, it's heartbreaking in some ways to just know that was God's original plan right from the beginning in the garden, and we had to go and cock it all up. So yeah, it's great that despite our brokenness, our betrayal, our sin, our stupidity, God has worked through all of our crap to get us back to him in the long run. Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another quick one, 4:16. So have I now become your enemy by telling you the truth? This is, again, a huge problem in our world. We often sort of find any truth offensive, right? And there isn't time to go through like some of the stuff I've been looking into about all this, but effectively the gospel, as I mentioned, is quite offensive to many people when you think about like PC culture, the way that the world is today.
Yeah.
And yet, it's even what Jesus said, right? If the world hates you, it's because they've hated me first, because I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So, anyway, there you go.
Yeah, no, like it. So my first point seemed a little bit confusing in my own head. This point seemed pretty much even more confusing in my own head. So 4 verse sort of 21 through to 31. The title is Hagar and Sarah, which obviously the two mothers that gave birth from Abraham to have Isaac and the other one. It's basically saying Abraham had two sons, one by the slave woman and one by the free woman. His son by the slave woman was born as a result of human effort. The one by the free woman was born as the result of divine promise. And then basically it sort of breaks it down to be the two different covenants that we now live as born under the free woman rather than born under the slave woman because of the way that whole line fed through. And
Yeah.
it takes a lot to sort of get your head around, really, but it was just, I like the way it broke it down. I think so often the New Testament sums up little nuggets of the Old Testament so neatly.
Yeah. And that's good. That's part of the constraints of a 10-minute podcast format, right? Because what I would encourage you to do, audience, is to go and read chapter 4, right? Galatians 4. Unpack it for yourself. It's not something that we can do as a soundbite very easily. But yeah, effectively, we are now in a new covenant and with freedom from the, what was it, 633 Levitical laws or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. So yeah, I respect the fact you brought that up because I remember reading that bit and being like, I'm not touching that. The only thing I will say, which I think is towards the end of the story, is it's interesting that Paul looks at the Bible with some figurative and symbolic nature sometimes, right? So the fact he takes Abraham's two wives, the slave, the free, and brings the symbolism out of that suggests that that's okay for us to do as well and to look for that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, the Bible is certainly true. I don't think the Bible is necessarily meant to always be literally true. Like, there are bits like parables and so on. You keep going, mate. My point's after yours.
So I've got a few bits I wanted to say before the end of Galatians here. First one is in 5 verse 16, where it's saying, so I live by the Spirit and you will not gratify, so I say, live by the Spirit and you will not gratify the desires of the sinful nature. For the sinful nature desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the sinful nature. They're in conflict, so that you are not then to do whatever you want. But if you are led by the Spirit, you're not under the law. And I just love the fact that it's like, if we live by the Spirit and live our lives according to that, we shouldn't be craving the things of like our sinful nature. And there's still temptation, sin's always crouching at our door, all that kind of stuff. But actually, the closer we are in line with Jesus, the less stuff that like gets through and infiltrates us.
Yeah, that's a great point. A great point. My next point, Galatians 5:22 and 23. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. So that kind of links to what you're saying about the Old Testament versus the New Testament, right? Because if you're doing those things, if you're doing things out of love and joy and peace and so on, you don't actually need laws against that. If you do something lovingly, then it is always purely lovingly, then it's pretty much always good, right? That's kind of what Jesus is saying to the Pharisees as well. Like, stop being so legalistic. I'm doing everything out of love and forbearance and joy and so on, right? And peace. Yeah. Therefore, what I'm doing is good and of God. And I often feel that the Holy Spirit is calling me to these things, but still, whether I actually listen or not is very hit and miss. But I will say, as my walk with God continues, I do feel, I literally feel more and more convicted of things and less weight to things as well, which is actually really nice.
That's cool.
So just keep pressing into the Spirit.
Love that, fella. That's really cool. Last thing I'm going to touch on here is beginning of Galatians 6 verse 1. Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. This goes against the cancel culture of today's culture, basically, isn't it?
Yeah,
I love it because I've been subject to that in such a loving way before, where it's like, actually, you've been down such a dark path, but rather than being condemned and like shunned for it, people restoring you gently. It's not comfortable, it's not always easy, it requires a lot of humility, but that's the way it should be done. You can't just cut people off what they've done in the past. There needs to be that gentle restoration.
Yeah, that's a great point again, dude. You've been on fire today, everything you've said, really. And I completely agree. Like, Christianity is an upside down kingdom. It is countercultural. And yeah, it goes against cancel culture. I love that. Really quick one from me just to finish out then. So Galatians 6:15, neither circumcision nor uncircumcision means anything. What counts is the new creation. And it's just a great thing to think about. I think about this a lot. What our renewed bodies will be like. And so, it doesn't matter if you got your turtleneck or not. in heaven you're going to have a new spiritual body. It's going to be awesome.
You dig into what you meant by that. Beauty. All right, Ephesians 1, 2, and 3. We'll see you tomorrow.
Get reading, share, cheers.